And now, our feature presentation.
I like it spooky.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the I Like It Spooky Horror Podcast. I'm Brian.
I am Clint, and Brian, as the world gets crazier and crazier, I am here to report that turkeys are falling from the fucking sky.
They're not flying, they're falling.
They're following. They're falling. So here's the story. Rebecca is on her way to work this morning of this podcast, or this recording, sorry. She's on her way to work from my house this morning. She goes underneath a bridge, and a fucking turkey falls from the bridge, hits the passenger side of her window, and smashes it to shit. She freaked out because, she didn't know what was happening, and rightfully so. This may sound like paranoid, but I'm glad that she thought like this. She didn't stop because she thought maybe someone tossed something off the bridge for me to stop, and then I get nabbed, I mean, again, the world gets crazier and crazier. Drove to work, called the police. They came out to do a report, and they found feathers stuck in there. A fucking turkey fell off the bridge and hit her windshield. But here's the crazy part and why I'm even talking about this right now. During this drive, she was listening to the latest episode, where this last one where we just covered The Haunted. And in the beginning of that, we were talking about Final Destination. And she said, Clint, it was right at that point when you guys were talking about ceilings collapsing and the old man with the logs, and all of a sudden my windshield gets smashed.
That's your news for this episode?
No, I got more news, but that's just the sky is falling.
Story time with Clint is the opening segment now.
Opening segment, story time with Clint, news flash. It's kind of like if we lived in Cincinnati, WKRP in Cincinnati.
Baby, if you've ever wondered whatever became of me. I'm living on the air in Cincinnati, WKRP.
And this would be fucking funny, but it's not. So, well, it is because she's okay. If she wasn't, then we couldn't laugh.
Maybe it was Les Nessman dropping turkeys out of a helicopter.
Place to land. No, something just came out of the back of the helicopter. It's a dark object. Perhaps a skydiver plummeting to the earth from only 2,000 feet into the air. Second to the third.
We're close to Cincinnati. It's like 4 hours. He just happened to be off. He's getting old. He can't see as well. And Les Nessman reported the news. That's a great segue, Brian. We should report some news, too.
So my news is horror adjacent, maybe? This is off of people.com. It doesn't get much bigger than New York Times, people.com. A 21-year-old woman found dead in wooded area amid fears of a New England serial killer. Have you heard about this?
Only because you shared it to me, and then since you did, I thought you would cover it on the news, and I thought to myself, the last episode he talked about a leg, I think it was, washing up on shore by Taylor Swift's home. So I think Brian is like turning into like a true crime podcast.
It's all related, right?
I think so.
So this young lady, Arianda Zazuzo, I don't know. It marks the 13th unexplained death in New England region in recent months. It's being investigated by the district attorney's office and the chief medical examiner. This comes after several women have been found dead in New England since March, sparking fears of a serial killer in the region.
This is horror adjacent. This is terrible because it's real life. This is nothing to laugh at. But this is horror adjacent because a lot of great cinematic horror that we enjoy is based off or rooted in urban legends or something like this. So I guess it is newsworthy here on the I Like It Spooky Horror Podcast. And it sounds terrible, and I'm glad that when I was in D.C., I did not go any farther.
Yeah, it says this is the 13th unexplained death in wooded or in remote areas in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine since March. In April, the remains of 6 people were found in towns close to one another in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Police have denied a single suspect in the killings despite speculation of a serial killer in the area. And it says the investigation is in in the early stages, remains active and ongoing, and there is no information at this time suggesting any connection to similar remains discovered in other areas. What do you mean? Oh, the police added that there is no known threat to the public at this time. I think there's a fucking threat to the public. 13 dead bodies, nothing explained.
Yeah, there's a threat.
It's all females, so me and you are okay, as far as I know. And we're not out in New England, but I feel like if I lived out that way, I'd be very cautious, very careful, carry mace, carry some kind of weapon, maybe stay in at nighttime. You know, I wouldn't be going out in the woods for long runs or anything.
You know what's interesting is this story, as ghoulish as it is, and it's kind of, I feel like we're kind of awkwardly trying to navigate through this report. It does kind of tie in with the movie we're going to talk about later, so that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's my news. Again, if you're in that area, be very careful. What do you got for news? Something hopefully better than what I covered. More happy or...
It's better, for sure. So my news stories, I'm going to have to kind of fumble through this because one of them is a link to a New York Times article, and it's trying to make me subscribe. Earlier, I was able to circumvent that and read some of it, but I didn't write any notes down for this recording because I figured I could just do it again, but now I cannot. So I'm just going to read the headline from that, and that is about George Romero's zombies lurch on in 3 family projects. So this is all I can read from this New York Times article because, again, I'm not going to subscribe just for one article. George Romero's daughter, ex-wife, and widow are each working on movies rooted in his legacy. I would love to report more on that, but unfortunately, live time, it's not allowing me to. I can give you a little more information on the one that his daughter is working on, and this is from JoeBlow.com, and it simply says, Queens of the Dead images preview zombie movie from George A. Romero's daughter ahead of its festival premiere. And then it says, are you interested in the Queens of the Dead? Take a look at the images and let us know by leaving a comment below. So there's not a whole lot in the article, just some teaser stuff. I think it's interesting. George passed away quite some time ago. And I think last year in the news, we were talking about Greg Nicotero was going to do a project and Russ Schreiner and John Russo were going to do a project. And of course, Suzanne Romero, who heads up GARF, relaunched the Dead podcast, which is kind of like an old time radio show that I subscribed to and, submitted a story to. And now you've got his daughter and his widow doing things. So I don't know. It's kind of cool. Some people some of the comments are that it's a cash grab, and other things are people are talking about how it's great, how his legacy can live on.
I was able to get the article to pull up, and it says when George died in 2017, he left behind several ideas and screenplays for zombie movies. One was a treatment, Twilight of the Dead.
That one that's Suzanne's working on that, and that was supposed to be in production in like the Philippines or Puerto Rico or something about a year ago.
She described it as a summing up of the franchise and ending to what began with Night of the Living Dead and continued for 5 decades of 6 flesh-gnawing movies.
Some of them we don't talk about, but Survival of the Dead and Diary of the Dead. Sorry, George, they just weren't up to the par of the others, in my opinion.
And then there's a Tina Romero, his daughter, has taken the black and white origins of the zombie her father created and splashed them with color and drag flair.
That's the Queens of the Dead that are coming out.
Yeah, I had to click like 42 buttons to get to this article, and it's actually super long. I'm 3 or 4 pages down, and it's still going. So this is something that if you're able to get over there and check it out, definitely go read this.
I think I found the link originally on bloodydisgusting.com. This is from a couple weeks ago, I believe. Wow, so this is probably the worst news segment we've had in the show here so far. Brian, thanks for the assist. We've been stumbling through, but let's what this real quick. George Romero legacy lives on. More zombies are coming from various people involved with his life. And don't go to the Northeast because you're going to die in the woods.
Probably while reading this article or trying to read this article, you're going to be so distracted. Yeah. He's going to sneak up on you and get you.
Yeah, I mean, I would subscribe to the New York Times, and I should have. So I was better prepared for right now because I feel like a bumbling idiot, but I'm poor.
So the first thing in this episode I've had for quite some time, and I don't remember if I showed it off when I got it, but I finally got it framed up. So that cost me more money to buy a frame and a trip out of town because Walmart doesn't sell the 11 by 17 frames in store anymore. You can order them. And usually if you order them, it's better to buy them by the case because you get free shipping. But we went out of town and we hit up a Hobby Lobby and I grabbed a frame for this. And it's a Monster Vision Joe Bob Briggs. And it's number 2 of 25 and it's from Slasher Design. And it's one of several Joe Bob posters I have. And it looks really good in the frame.
You're going to be on an episode of American Pickers someday when you get older, if that show is still around. And they're going to come to your house and it's going to be just wall-to-wall Joe Bob memorabilia.
And this is another thing I picked up. And this is a dead format. You can't even buy these are like VHS, but worse. Because I don't even know a handful of people that know what these are. But this is
the Laserdisc.
It's not a laser disc, though. In here is like a record. I tried to open it up and look, and it looks more like a record than a laser disc. Maybe it is a laser disc. I swore it was. You can't get the damn thing out. I feel like laser discs you can slide out of the thing. This is like a record.
I mean, I remember laser discs were basically record-sized CDs. That's what they looked like.
It's a CED is what they call them. This is Alien, and I paid $20 for 36 discs. Alien's probably the most horror one, but there was like Conan the Barbarian, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, oh God, Mad Max, some other ones. Selectovision, RCA Selectovision. And somebody said this is one of the things that put RCA out of business was these things. And they're not heavy by themselves, but when you get 30 of them in a fucking crate, I had to take a break walking back to the car.
I wonder why that format didn't take off. I know why Laserdiscs died off, but it sounds like RCA just tossed their name in the hat, the rat race of media, and fell short.
Well, and some of them had 2 discs, so it was 2 of these you had to have for one movie. So I would imagine that. And they're bulky. I mean, it's like a record.
That's what I remember about Laserdiscs, because I have limited experience with Laserdiscs. I think it was like my uncle or maybe my dad's buddy. I remember being over there when I was a kid and we were watching, I think it was like Poltergeist on Laserdisc or something. And you had to like halfway through flip it over to get to the rest of it.
I bought them pretty much as a novelty, plus $20 for 30 some of them. I thought they would be kind of cool if I can't sell any of them to frame them up.
Well, somewhere there is a serious collector who's going to be very interested in that. But I see that you just held up a book too. So what's next? A rotary phone? A beeper?
After the book?
Yeah.
Maybe.
A pigeon? Because
this is the official companion guide to the TV show.
Here's the official companion guide to how to run the RCA Laserdisc.
To the Outer Limits.
That's cool.
And I grabbed this for $1 at the library sale. Our library has a sale. Most libraries, I feel like, have a sale once a year where people donate stuff and they sell it or they sell old books. And I was like, oh, the Outer Limits companion book. I'll grab that. I'm not keeping this because it sells for $30 to $50 on eBay. And I paid $1 for it.
Yeah, I would definitely. We talked before that we're not flippers, but you come across stuff like that doesn't mean much to you or your collection. So yeah, turn $1 on it. Why not?
They had Ghostbusters 2 was one of the books that came out like when the movie came out. The Bad News Bears novelization, I'm mailing that to our buddy Justin Beam because he worked on the special features for that movie for Shout. And I said, you want a copy of this? And he's like, yes, please. So I paid $1 for it and a couple bucks to mail it to him. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, the novelizations from when the movie came out. I think I spent $10, $11 at the library sale, and it helps the library. That's all. I pretty much just spent the weekend picking Saturday anyway. I didn't really go to any stores or get anything super expensive. I think I maybe spent $40 all weekend, but a little bit here, a little bit there. Take stuff to shows and kind of move stuff and make some money back and then help pay for a table or something.
Well, for sure. Well, I got something a little more modern, and it was yet another gift.
What is it?
He's like, take me to the future. I know you said you wanted this. I don't know if you have it yet or not, but Rebecca and I recently celebrated our 1-year anniversary, and as a gift, she got me the NEC account.
Yes, is. Oh, greetings. It is I, the Count. And it's time to answer that fascinating question. What is the Sesame Street number of the day? Let's count the bats and find out.
The Sesame Street Count. And what's so cool is he has, accessories like a candelabra, and I think there's a bat in there. But it comes with the number 2. And the number 2's got like these angry eyebrows. He put his angry eyebrows on, and he's just sitting there like scolding at you. It's pretty cool.
I don't have it yet. I think it's still sitting at Tad's house in Burlington, Iowa. So when I get over there again, then I'll pay him for it and grab it.
You better hurry up because he'll open it. Tad opens shit. Hurry up before he does.
He probably has one of his own. I'm waiting until they come out with the one that lives in the trash can, Oscar the Grouch. I want that one too.
I don't know if they're going to do a whole line or not. I think they kind of just did because it was horror related.
Yeah, I know they have the Toonie Terrors. Well, cartoon terrors or whatever the hell they call them when they're cartoons, but they have an Oscars of those.
Oh, they do? Okay, I didn't know that.
I'm not too poor, but we're getting ready to go South Dakota for vacation, and that's a 12-hour drive. And then we're going to drive 6 hours to Nebraska from there, and I'm going to be off work for a week, so then I'll be super poor.
I know that I think this episode comes out the day after Maximum Overdrive. So as we're recording, it's a coin flip if I'm going to be poor or not. We should take it to a sponsor, which will probably end up being the next event I got going on out there with Butch Patrick. So let's hear from Butch.
Hey, Butch Patrick and friends here. We would like to invite you to the Haunting in the Hills at the old Stagecoach stop in Onstead, Michigan on July 10th at 5 o'clock until 9 o'clock or even later. Look forward to seeing you there.
So now that we've heard from our sponsor, it's time for the movie. And we're not on TV this time, although I kind of felt like I was for a lot of the movie. And I watched it on YouTube, so...
Really?
You never know on YouTube, is this the version that would be if I owned a disc of it, or if it was on a paid streaming service, or is this stuff had to get cut out for it to be on YouTube?
There was a couple different versions, but we'll get to that in a little bit. What did we watch?
Yeah, we're talking about the 1982 John Russo directed with special effects for most of the movie by
Tom Savini.
Not the whole movie, but most of the movie. Midnight, also known as The Backwoods Massacre.
Now the hour of horror approaches and the terror begins at midnight. Midnight, when the dead drink the blood of the living. Midnight, by the co-author of Night of the Living Dead. Now don't miss John Russo's Midnight. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent. If you have a weak stomach, don't come.
I think I like that one better.
Kinda, but opening thoughts. I have 2 opening thoughts about this movie. Never seen this movie. This is the first time watch for you as well, correct?
Yes.
This has always been on my radar, just never got around to watching it. Opening thoughts. This was John Russo's Chainsaw Massacre.
Very much so.
I'll talk about that here in just a second. And also my second thought, I love Pennsylvania. I love the countryside. I love the architecture. I love the bridges. I love Pennsylvania. Every time I'm there, it's always such beautiful countryside. I mean, just got back from the DC trip and we drove through Gettysburg and a lot of, rural places. And of course, even, the urban places. And it's just such a cool fucking place.
See, my first thought was my second thought. My first thought was, I wonder who knows about this movie other than you and I, because we're going to watch it. So I sent a message to a couple friends. Brian Clark likes this movie, and Mike Saunders likes this movie. And I agreed with both of them that this is John Russo's second best film outside of Return of the Living Dead. One, Night of the Living Dead, I guess he co-wrote that. But to me, this is one of his best films.
Well, now we know what you think about it. I kind of liked it too. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to us bumble through the news.
We're done.
We're going to let you off the hook early. No, we're not, because I got all kinds of pages and notes here. So some of this stuff is taken directly from the Internet Movie Database, but to the point about the Chainsaw Massacre, despite some similarities to Tobe Hooper's Chainsaw Massacre, director-writer John Russo said he had never seen the film at the time that he wrote and shot Midnight, and according to him, Chainsaw was not an influence. So I wonder if there's truth to that. I don't know why John Russo would lie, but we've talked about it it before, where it's just things being made around the same time, because this movie was actually made years before it was released. This movie came out in 82. I didn't see when it was shot, but I saw it came out years after. So this was made around the same era of Chainsaw Massacre. And we've talked before, I always go back to the 1981 example. All of these horror movies came out that were super similar, and I think it was just cosmic, just what was buzzing around at the time.
And even if there's some influences from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, yeah, I don't know why John Russo wouldn't have to lie about anything, there are some twists that are special in this movie. And we're going to probably ruin the whole movie. So if this is something that interests you, watch it first, because there were things in it that I thought, that's different. That's different. That's not a normal horror movie trope, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure.
I'll give you a little synopsis before we get too far into it. Midnight follows Nancy, a teenage runaway, escaping her abusive father. She encounters a pair of petty criminals, and together they embark on a road trip. Their journey takes a dark turn when they are abducted by a backwoods family attempting to resurrect their deceased mother through a satanic ritual. The film blends elements of slasher horror with themes of exploitation and rural dread.
That's a little lengthy, but it pretty much encompasses everything. But what's interesting about this movie, I'm going to get to one point in a second about the film quality, which I think is another thing that lent it to that chainsaw reference. But what's interesting about this movie is it's very much like a roller coaster. It just kind of click, 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 clicks, and then it just hits the top and it crescendos and then drops, and then it's a fun fucking ride. It gets better and better as it goes. I think that was my opinion. But due to the tight budget of the production, the entire film had to be shot on low quality film stock. This often meant that some takes, even the best ones, couldn't be used due to problems with the celluloid being defective. Or those takes that were processed the best were used for the movie. And according to Russo, this was much to blame for the film's crude style. So I don't think this is what he intended to make as far as the visual style, besides the shot compositions and everything. But I think it was a happy accident. It was a Bob Ross all the way.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like this has more of almost a shot on video feel compared to Texas Chainsaw. Does Texas Chainsaw feel like they tried to make the film dirty? And I've heard it before. Maybe that's where it's coming through, but they dragged it through the dirt and they made the film grainy. This doesn't feel like that to me.
I think it was the same thing. A lot of it was budget.
Yeah, 71 to 75,000 was the budget for this film.
Yeah, I saw 70,000.
John pretty much worked with himself and a very small crew, if any crew.
It was 3 people. It was him and 2 other people were the crew.
And Tom Savini was there doing some effects, but I don't know if you have this in your notes, he got pulled away to do Night Riders, the film.
I didn't have that. I saw that he turned down to do the special effects. He turned down for Friday the 13th Part 2 to do this project, but I didn't know he got pulled away for Night Riders.
The change of the movie's name was after, like, in 85 when it was re-released.
Right. It was originally titled The Congregation. It was also released in some theaters, like you just said, as Backwoods Massacre.
It made its money. It sure the hell made a lot of money on video.
I didn't catch a budget on it. A gross.
It says it made over $1 million, grossing approximately $1 million in home video sales.
I'll tell you what, if you haven't seen this and you go watch this based off us talking about it, hopefully you understand why. But another reason maybe is because I've said it before, but John Russo, his middle name is Grind. John Grind Russo. You have to respect this man's tenacity, if anything, because he is at every fucking show. He's pushing every project, old school, boots to the ground. And I'm sure that's what he did with this movie as well.
It was one of those that during the video nasties era, it wasn't banned, but some authorities did seize this film. So it didn't make the big list, but I think a lot of people were like, nope, can't show that.
Which is insane because it's not that bad. But you got to take into account the time it was made and the realistic, due to the budget and the low film quality, the realistic nature that it was portrayed.
Would it be the violence or the cult? It's the cult, right?
I don't think so, because you got to think in the mid to late 70s, there was so many satanic movies. You had The Devil's Reign, Race with the Devil. There were more. Those are the 2 that popped in my brain. But so So there was so many, satanic movies that came out, and it was all low budget. Talk with Joe Bob. He probably saw half of them at the drive-in, I don't think it was the content.
Well, this was 80s, though.
But it was shot years before then.
Yeah, but released, though, when it comes out on home video in the middle of the 80s, that's when that video nasty thing's happening. And it seemed like it was mostly VHS stuff that we would love was what was getting the hammer put down on it.
Well, and that could be now that you present it like that, because, of course, when you get to the mid, especially to the late 80s, but that's when you had the Satanic Panic, Ozzy Osbourne, Backward Messages, the Devil's, and heavy metal music and horror movies and violence. And
all it takes is one little Billy's mom to let him rent this movie, and then his friends are sleeping over and they see it and they go home and tell their moms, and then the government's involved.
I think maybe the reason that this movie didn't get more eyes on it like that at the time was because when I was that age and I went to little Billy's house across the street, actually his name was Robbie. Yeah. That's when I saw Linnea Quigley's boobies when I was like 9 years old or whatever the hell it was. There is no nudity in this. None whatsoever. There looks like there's some spots where there could have been, but there's no nudity. And the violence, there's a couple where you actually see a hammer hit a head or something like that, but the violence and the gore is not really over the top. But I did read that a lot of it got cut to maintain that R rating.
And no comedic tone at all to this film.
No. There was only one scene that kind of made me laugh, but I'll get to that in my rating.
So this girl's stepdad is a police officer, and he's trying to sexually assault her, touch her. He's a drunk. He's an alcoholic. So she runs away. And the first person that wants to pick her up is another sexual deviant, an older gentleman that says, I'll give you a ride halfway, and then we stay the night in the hotel, and then I'll give you the ride the rest of the 600 miles I can take you. And then we got to stay the night in another hotel as your way of paying for the trip.
Yeah, because when she runs away, they didn't say she was in Pennsylvania, but she was in Pennsylvania. And they do reference some Pennsylvania names later on in the movie, but she was trying to get to California because that's where her older sister had moved to. He's like, I'll take you 600 miles.
But you got to pay twice.
Much like Flesh Eating Mothers, the stepfather-daughter sexual abuse attempt scene, it was very awkward and clunky. It wasn't well acted. It had this weird upbeat music going on for such a gross scene because it was pretty gross and it was extended. I thought that was odd, the music.
Yeah, I read somewhere that the score was composed by Mike Mazzei, Mazzei, and he was part of a Christian-based group that participated in this project. I don't know why that would be happening, why a Christian-based group would be
covering a satanic and sexual abuse. And yeah, I will say this, the music is very much like the movie. The music does not drive the movie, but the music's very much like the movie. It starts out odd, out of place, offbeat, quirky, and then you start to get into that horror synth, and it's just a little bit here and a little bit there, and it starts to get more sinister as the movie starts to get more. This movie gets so much better as it goes on, right up to the very end. A couple things I want to talk about before we jump too far ahead. To me, the first few minutes of this movie start off just like Frailty. I don't know if anybody listening has seen the movie Frailty with Matthew McConaughey. That's a fantastic movie. But in Frailty, you don't know if the people that are getting killed are actually demons or not. You kind of find out throughout the movie as it goes on. In the beginning of this movie, you have a young woman who's the mother, and she's teaching her kids that they're killing a demon, and you don't know if it is or not. Maybe it's a young girl, that they're trying to kill. Maybe the mother's true and it's a demon and they can see things that we can't. But then you see that she's teaching her children devil worship and sacrificial rituals because she goes, it's a demon. And then the next scene is they've captured this girl that they caught in a bear trap, and then they're sacrificing her to the devil. So I'm like, demons, devil, do you not get what you're saying? But what was super funny was in that scene, the young daughter at the time, she sounds just like a Charlie Brown kid, but reciting a satanic ritual. It's hilarious.
Almighty Lord Satan, we ask thee to help us in the destruction of our enemies, as you have done for us today. We pledge ourselves to thee, and may we continue to be thy faithful servants. Whomsoever you send to us, we shall destroy, knowing it is thy will. Amen.
Now, Cynthia, now!
So it did not dawn on me until you're talking about that those kids are the adults trying to bring their mother back to life.
Yes.
I thought, what the hell does this have to do with this movie? And now it's dawning on me that that's the family as they've aged.
Yeah, you basically have it was a pre-credit scene, if I remember correctly. And you see that it's a mom and these young kids, and she's teaching them how to trap people and then sacrifice them to the devil so they can live forever. And that's another, now I'm fast forwarding. We're going to jump all around. Later on in the movie, you see that the mother's dead and laid up in the corner, and the kids are older now, and they're trying to bring her back to life. And that was another Chainsaw similarity, except in Chainsaw, the grandpa was alive, but here's this corpse laying in the corner.
Well, and grandpa didn't talk in Chainsaw. I feel like she communicated with them, or they heard her voice.
I didn't catch that, but it was pretty late and I was tired when I watched it.
Yeah, I feel like towards the end of the movie that they could hear her saying stuff to them.
I know that after that opening hook, this movie had a really great opening title sequence scene. It was interesting. It rivaled some things I see today, just the way the credits popped up and faded off, and just, you saw a scene of this and a silhouette of that and a bust of this person. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I was telling a coworker about this film, and I said, it's one of those movies where nothing happened, but so much fucking happened for a large amount of the movie, if that makes sense. Where you're like, okay, I'm not invested yet. What am I getting to? And then, like you said, when it takes that turn, you totally get invested. It threw me. I was like, what? No fucking way. That did not happen.
It was almost until it was like at the end of the movie, I went, holy shit, that was a really good movie. But you didn't know it until the movie was over with. And you're like, holy shit, that's a really good movie. Back to the opening scene, you were talking about the stepfather or the drunk cop. I don't know if you caught this. I'm like, I know this guy. Who the fuck is this guy? So he was played by Lawrence Tierney, who you might know as the bartender in Silver Bullet. Of course, he was also, I know you know this, Brian, because it's one of your favorite movies. He was the older crime boss in Reservoir Dogs and a slew of other shit, but those were the two that stuck out.
Yeah, amazing character actor. And I noticed him right away. I was like, that guy's familiar. I know him from somewhere. Other than that, I didn't know anybody in the film.
Well, John Amplas stuck out. John Amplas, he played Abraham, which was one of the brothers. And I mean, John Amplas is a Romero and a Pennsylvania, that film community staple. I mean, he was played Nathan Graham in Creepshow. He was Martin in Martin. He in Day of the Dead was one of the scientists underground. In Dawn of the Dead, he was in the beginning when they were raiding the
perma building
projects. Yeah, the project. He ran out and had they painted him up to make it look like he was Puerto Rican or something, and he had the red bandana on. Jesus Christ, there's 1,000 of them, Binks,
Martin, I own Martin. I've never seen Martin, though.
Oh my God, watch Martin. What the hell is wrong with you?
Well, I might be saving it for the podcast.
There you go. It's a good idea because it's a good movie. There is another standout, and they wouldn't be till later on or after this film, but Lachelle Carl, she played the preacher's daughter. She's had quite a career also, including a role on season 1 of the Netflix Wednesday series. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that she's been involved with as well.
Is this... Because I feel like George did it really well, and maybe it's something that John and George did really well. There's a lot of racial, cultural undertone to this film. It kind of smacks you in the face, but at the same time it doesn't. But do you know what I mean? Like when they're in the small town and there's one of the gentlemen is African American, and we don't want your type here. What are you doing buying a beer? So it's there, but it's not smacking you in the face.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think they were like-minded in that aspect. They came from the same circle of friends, same group of people. So I agree with their viewpoint on racism by all means, but it's almost like they hated rednecks. Like every redneck in any Romero movie or in this John Russo flick is like immediately a racist devil. You know what I mean? But of course there was a lot of that in their era. So I know that's what they grew up with. So yeah, the social commentary wasn't the driving force of the movie. It wasn't a theme. It was present. And I think that added to the realism of the film as well.
Do you feel like that though? Up until a point, it was almost like a made for TV movie, like an after school special of like, if you do these things, these are what bad kids do.
Yeah, kind of, because what it was the two guys who wind up picking up the young girl who I think was 17. I think they were in their 20s.
Yeah, 25 or something like that. Yeah, 23.
Taking I think they said vacation. I think it was like a spring break road trip. They were going to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and they realized they had enough money for gas or food. And then so they chose to use their money for gas, and then they were just robbing grocery stores along the way. Not at gunpoint. They were just kind of going up and bagging up their groceries and then running for the van.
Drop their bread on the way out.
Yeah, it was kind of like, if you do bad things like, Bobby and Joey, you're going to wind up getting shot in the woods by a satanic cult posing to be police officers.
And that's the point where the film fooled me, because every other horror film, when the police come and they take the kids, the police are always in on it. It's, you know what I mean? The police are always like, oh, it's a small town. The police are in on the murders. They help cover it up.
I thought they were there to carry out their brand of racial justice. That's what I thought was happening.
But I thought they were police. They weren't police officers.
They were the satanic cult. I knew something was off with them because the one, he was either like, you could tell he wasn't a police officer. And then John Amplis, who played Abraham, he was just so sinister. And so I'm like, okay, these guys aren't cops. But at first, I thought they were just redneck cops who were going to kill the black guy. I thought that's what they were doing.
What, the cops came to the house because there's a couple young girls missing. And then the people in the house drugged the cops and killed the cops, and then took their clothes to act like the police. So then the police are looking for these officers that they don't know where they're at. Now there's officers and people missing. But the weird thing is, other than the chief, I didn't see any other police officers.
It was a small town, but yeah, for sure. And that's right there. Like you say, the film just shifted gears, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, holy shit, this is what's going on. One thing I got to add that added to the realism of this film was the shag carpet on the interior walls of the van. How you don't get much more real than that. Party van with the shaggiest shaggy carpet I've ever seen.
Kind of like you, I got to the end and I was like, that was actually a good movie. And it's something that I would watch again and tell people to watch, and I probably need to watch again, and I will catch more of what's going on. I kind of got lost at points. I'm like, well, who's that? Why are they going to kill these people that are just going to eat dinner? And then they needed another person because the brothers fucked up. They needed 3 women instead of 2, and they killed one of the ones.
Yeah, the plot gets thicker as it goes on, because at first, when you realize there's this crazed backwoods killer, you think it's just one crazy guy. And at that point, and you had already forgot because you said so, you forgot about the young family in the beginning. You're like, what the hell? I actually thought when I call him the giggler because he was always laughing, the giggler. But I thought maybe he was just like the crazed son of that family or something. And that's when you find out, because I had no clue that the 2 young men in the van were going to get, when they got shot, I went, holy fuck, are you serious? Like they're our leads. We're halfway through this movie. You just killed off our 2 leads. Stereotypically, they would have been the heroes to save the day, and they're gone.
Or at least lasted until closer to the end of the movie, the last scenes where everybody's getting killed.
Right. So it's like, what do we do now? Where do we go from here? And then that's when you realize it's just not the one, plaid wearing, overall wearing, giggler, killer, redneck guy in the woods. One thing I got to say about this film is the acting was decent. This is one of my knocks in this film, but the delivery was very memorized lines, like in a play. And I really feel that Russo wrote this script a lot like a novel would read. And nothing was out of place. Just it was long and maybe clunky or awkward. It had superb cinematography, but I think that the script needed to be a little more humanized and a little less novelization.
Well, do you feel like because of the budget constraints, once you start filming a certain way, you can't, because of budget, you can't say, okay, guys, you got to loosen up a little bit. We got to try it this way. Let's film a couple scenes with you not being so stoic.
The budget definitely played a part in this. I also think I have down here that the bulk of the movie's cast came from the Pittsburgh Playhouse of Point Park College. So they were theater kids for the most part. And I think that's just how they knew how to deliver lines. And it wasn't like it was bad. It just, I felt like I was watching, especially like when the preacher came on, him and his daughter, when they wandered up to the gas station asking for a ride, his whole monologue about warning them about what's going on with the killings in the area. It wasn't terrible. It didn't seem weird, but I felt like I was watching a play, or I was reading or like listening to an audiobook, reading a novel. But I also saw you're talking about the budget affecting time schedules. This movie took 6 months to shoot. I don't know why. I just saw that it took 6 months. I don't know if weather was a condition or if they ran out of money and had to raise more. For what we got, you would think that 6 months, it would have been tightened up a little bit here and there.
Yeah, and that would be one of the acting and tighten it up just a little bit. I mean, it's relatively short. It's only, an hour and 30 minutes long? An hour and 34 minutes long. So it's not super long, but could have been a little bit shorter. But it seems like short movies went away at some point. You couldn't go under an hour and a half.
No, because I think a lot of directors wanted to start putting expression in there. And so, again, Russo had a lot of established landscape shots, which I lapped up like a kid with a big bowl of cereal because I love the countryside of Pennsylvania. I knew immediately, and he captured a lot of the things that I enjoy about seeing when I'm driving through the mountains heading to Gettysburg. But there were a lot of extended scenes of that, but I enjoyed them, so I didn't notice it. It's not a complaint. I do know that it made me think of... So I work for UPS. We've talked about it before. I've been there for, 2 decades plus. And I used to drive a lot more than I do now. I used to do a lot of country route stuff. And I remember I would drive and you would see this old farmhouse or this old field or this whatever. And it's just me in a truck driving for hours. And I would look around and think up little stories or I wonder if that place was haunted. And then I was like, it looks like something terrible happened here. And I think it's one of the reasons I've talked before. One of my favorite scenes from the entire Friday the 13th franchise. It's at the beginning of part 4, which takes place at the end of part 3. And it starts out with all of the chaos of the cops and the sirens, and they take all the bodies away. And then the camera sits there and it's just quiet and you hear the crickets and the bullfrogs. And it's just like, I could walk up onto that scene, not knowing all that chaos just happened. This movie made me think of that. Those guys were just camping in a field by a tree in the sleeping bags. They got shot and then they were gone. It just made you think anything can happen at anywhere at any time. You could be driving to work and a fucking turkey could fall from the sky and smack your fucking windshield and no one would know.
Yeah, because they took the van away. Eventually they were going to, and they burned all the bodies. So you would just come up and think, somebody had a bonfire here, or you wouldn't think anything of it. You thought, we could clean this up and have another fire and camp here for the night. It looks like a nice cleared out area.
It reminds me, I'm getting off topic from the movie now, but it reminds me when we were in the DC, it was a trip through the school, and we were in Arlington Cemetery, and it wasn't the tomb of the unknown soldier, but there's a large house, kind of at the top of the hill in Arlington, and there's another mass grave there for soldiers. And the walk path, the tour guide was like, you're actually there's roughly 2,000 people buried in this spot. And so I said, so you mean the walk path? I'm stepping on people right now? Because when I go to cemeteries, I try to be respectful and step around. And he was like, yeah, one of the kids we were with kind of freaked out. And so I told the story. I'm trying to scare these kids even more. My old man always told me, he says, if you think about it at any given time, kind of like what I'm talking about, there's probably people buried under your feet all the time and you don't know it. Murders or, Indian burial grounds or just whatever.
Layers and layers of, yeah.
Straying from the movie, sorry about that, but who knows what happened? Maybe this really happened in Pennsylvania. And it's happening again in Massachusetts. Is that bad? Should I not say that?
Oh, we really don't know. According to the police, nothing's happening in Massachusetts.
Oh, so yeah, we're fine then. I can say that.
What else you got?
Oh, so you're waiting for the fun fact, because I got a fun fact right here. I just learned, because I've known about Midnight for years, I just learned that John Russo produced a sequel, Midnight 2. He produced this in 1993, and it's about a surviving member of the family of the Satanic cult members who is now videotaping murders of young women.
Sounds kind of like, oh God, what's the one, the VHS one that you like?
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer? That's the first thing it made me think of.
Yeah, something along those lines. Or, what's the one where they own the video store and they're putting the movies up? Video Violence.
And what's funny is Video Violence and Video Violence 2, when I found this fact, it was on IMDb. There you go, Rod. I said IMDb. Are you happy? It kind of popped up at the bottom as suggestions.
It's got some physical media releases. VHS, of course, selling approximately $1 million worth of video cassettes by Vidmark Entertainment. There's a name we know.
I miss Vidmark, yeah.
DVD released by Lionsgate Home Video in 2005, and Blu-ray in September 21 featured restored visuals and new special features. Just guess who put this out.
John Russo.
No, Severin Films.
Oh, okay.
A Blu-ray copy of this film from Severin Films.
Now that you mention it, that makes sense. I could see this being in Severin's catalog.
Yeah, you can go buy it, and I'm pretty sure it's still, if I remember right, I checked, and it's still one of those ones you can go buy. It's still there. I mean, 2021 wasn't that long. Go buy it. I bet it looks good once they've cleaned it up.
I'm curious to talk to Brian Clark and Mike Saunders and see what they enjoyed about this film, to see if it's similar, or if there's something that I didn't even, pick up on. But well, hopefully people, Brian, these late night recordings, and this is my fault, we need to get back to our normal time, because I feel like these late night recordings, we just kind of bumble through stuff. It always winds up sounding decent. I feel like we've kind of fumbled through this episode so far. So let's get to a rating.
I started at a 7 out of 10, and I'll probably stick there, but I think on a second watch, it would probably bump it up to like a 7.5, an 8 out of 10. I'll stick at 7 now, though. 7 out of 10, Satanic Sisters. Because actually, I was like, that sister's kind of good looking for a Satanic sister.
So you want there to be 6 more of her, so there's 7 of them?
No, 1 would be enough.
I mean, she's trying to kill you, for God's sakes.
Maybe not me. I feel like they had to kill females, right?
Yeah.
Unless, when the brothers are all dead, they have to kill males to bring them back.
Could be. There's a plot twist. Oh, shit. You just came up with the idea for Midnight Part 3. You've been doing good these last few episodes of coming up with these movie ideas. All we ask for is, royalties. That's all we want. So, like I said, I was not a fan of this film when it started. I thought it was meandering. I thought it was kind of pointless. I thought the acting wasn't that great. The music was off. I'm like, this is what did I get into? But as it went on, it grew on me more and more. And like I said, I actually wound up really enjoying it. I loved how it ended. It just ended. There was no bullshit, and that's always a huge point with me. When the story ends, there was no need for it to go past where it did. The story wrapped up, and we were done. So you take all that into consideration. I'm going, same score, I'm going 7 white ass guards out of 10. Because that's where I was talking about. The one funny thing of the movie was the one killer brother, and one scene they abduct a young lady from, she's like at her home barbecuing with her husband in the backyard. They're playing Frisbee, and he's terrible at throwing Frisbee, by the way. And they abduct. Did they kill him? I think they killed. Yeah, they killed him and they took her. So the Satanic brother, he out of nowhere, he's wearing this white ass guard, like something like you'd see Fred from Scooby-Doo wear, but it was white. And I'm like, why the hell is he wearing that? And he uses it to like choke everybody out. And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't know the ass guards were a weapon. Maybe that's why you don't see them anymore.
Kind of like a gi in remember early UFC? Did you watch any of that?
A little bit.
There was a guy, Royce Gracie, that would wear a gi, and he'd just use to choke every fucking buddy out. Yeah, he'd be beating these 500-600 pound guys and choking the shit out of them.
He didn't even need the gi. He just needed a white ass guard.
It looked pretty nice.
Do you know who I think would look striking in a white ass guard? A whole just room full of people in white ass guards.
Just everybody.
Everybody.
All of us included, right?
I'll wear the fuck out of a white ass guard. Yeah. Our podcast network, the PFPN. Everybody. I guess Rod would. I don't know if Rod would look good in a white ass guard.
Leah, she's part of the podcast network, right?
Yeah, I could see her wearing a.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
So now that we've heard from our podcast network, it's time for some recommendations, because I'm putting horror history to bed for a while, like I talked about on the last episode. So we're going to go straight into recommendations.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are about to enter the world of darkness. A world where life and death are meaningless, and pain is God. Woo! Hey!
And I have 11 recommendations if you like this film.
This is an easy one. You can go a few different directions from this.
First one, Don't Go in the House from 1980.
Now, hold on. I'm going to stop right there. You just opened up a whole new path. There are now 304 recommendations, because there is a whole, I don't even know what you would call that, but there's a whole early 80s subgenre of don't go in the house, don't go in the basement, don't look in the freezer. And they were all really good. Well, most of them.
Number 2, from 1974, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Even if John Russo didn't see it.
Yeah, even if Russo says that it's not a thing, it's a thing.
From 2013, Jugface.
Never seen it.
Backwards cult, young women on the run, and a bizarre form of backcountry religion. 2017, I've seen this one. It's The Ritual. It's remote in the woods. It's got more of a supernatural feel to it. It's a group of friends that go camping in Sweden. Some of it, the eerie sense, but it's more clean and it's more of a creature feature than this one. It fits a little bit, but not totally. From 2018, Mandy. Have you seen Mandy?
No, that's got Nick Cage in it, but I haven't seen that one.
Set in the wilderness, rural madness. It's like this movie, but on steroids almost.
I thought that had to do with like purple lights and aliens and psychosis.
That's color out in space. But I think Mandy has some of that in it too. So it's Nick Cage. It's all going to be weird.
Right.
From 2021, Hellbender.
You've talked about it before. I still haven't seen it. That's a satanic cult.
Yeah, witchcraft themes. It's a family grounded. It's all grounded in occult horror, kind of like this one is. This is one I haven't seen from 2019, The Other Lamb, but it talks about cult dynamics, female awakening, oppressive control in a rural setting, realistic, all that kind of stuff. From 1970, I Drink Your Blood.
I love that movie.
Sleaze, Grindhouse Flare, another cult movie. Is it like these people inject these pies or something with? Is that what it is?
I don't remember. I just remember that I love that movie because it's been like 20 years since I've seen it. I just remember like, oh my God, I love that movie.
From 1973, Messiah of Evil. This is on the seaside though.
We talked about covering that. That is one. It's one of the favorites of Rob from Mad Ghoul Radio, and he. I saw someone commented on Facebook somewhere the other day, like, name a movie that most people don't know that's really good. And that's what he put. He's been pushing for me to see that, for us to see that. We should check it out.
From 1972, The Last House on the Left by Wes Craven.
Yes, very much so.
Never seen it.
You've never seen Last House on the Left?
I think I've started it a couple times in something. And my honorable mention would be from 1980. It's a trauma flick, not a trauma flick. I think they distribute it. Mother's Day.
I could see Mother's Day. Yeah, that was a fun movie too.
It's fun, but at the same time, it's not fun, right?
No, it's fun. So some of these movies that you talked about, like that one, doesn't necessarily deal with satanic worship or rituals or anything like that, but very much the backwoods family trying to keep mom happy. This movie, I think, would also pair well with House of a Thousand Corpses. I think it would pair well with that. And anything from I don't even know if there's a term for it, that George Romero, Image 10, Pennsylvania kind of film scene from the 70s through the 80s or even the 90s would pair well with this, just because you have some of the same actors, the same scenery, the same subject matter, like we talked about earlier with the racial undertones. Like you could watch this with Night of the Living Dead. You could watch this with Martin. You could watch this with Dawn of the Dead. You could watch this with a lot of Romero flicks as well, I think.
And I feel like, because this reminds me of a lot of shot on video films, the story and the look. I feel like this is maybe even more of a precursor to that genre than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm sure more people seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but this feels more like those films.
I think that the indie spirit of Tobe Hooper with Chainsaw Massacre, and just as much so the indie spirit of John Russo with this film, is what inspired a lot of young filmmakers in the 90s and 2000s and forward. We got a camera, we want to make a horror movie, we're going to make a backwoods family, say, satanic ritual movie.
And one of the things that I despise about Texas Chainsaw Massacre is how much they've cleaned it up and forced it to be cleaner and look better and sound better. I don't fucking want that. I want the original version of it. You know what I mean? Because to me, when I see Texas Chainsaw Massacre now, it doesn't even feel indie anymore. Does that make sense?
It does. I don't get into the restored stuff as much as you, so I haven't seen that, so I haven't experienced it, but I understand what you're saying. You know, another movie this would pair well with? Sam Raimi's Thou Shalt Not Kill, made around the same time. Look up Thou Shalt Not Kill. I think this would fit right in there.
We're going a little off track, but we're talking about all these films, and I feel like that's, if we're pulling the curtain back, we are never going to be the last podcast on the left or any of these huge podcasts, because I don't feel like the mainstream will like, oh, I love listening to those guys, because we go way outside these boundaries. We're swimming in these pools with these kind of movies, and we're not doing every Friday the 13th, every Halloween. Not that we don't cover those, but we're not doing all this mainstream stuff. And then even when we do some mainstream stuff, if you asked most people, you seen Late Night with the Devil? They'd be like, no. Horror fans have, but not your mainstream horror fans, right? That's why we'll never blow up and be on every damn place in the world. And I'm okay with that.
I agree, but I don't think it's ever been the point of this. At least that was never my intention with what I contribute when I came on this show. Yeah, I joke around about, Joe Rogan makes money and we don't, but I like what we do. And I think it's super cool because you never fucking know. The next episode, we might cover Friday the 13th, part 6. We might cover Nightmare on Elm Street, part 4. I know something we are going to talk about more is we are going to be talking about 28 years later. Fuck yeah, we are. I don't think that we are obscure or underground or whatever, but some of the stuff that we watch is Flesh Eating Mothers. How many people have heard of that? This movie right here, Midnight. How many people have heard of that? We covered Sinners, and I'm sure a shit ton of people saw that and will continue to see that, and they should, because God, that was such a good movie.
Yeah, and sometimes we fall into stuff like The Haunted. I mean, you shared it on the podcast page today. Bloody Disgusting is talking about The Haunted because it's going to be the next movie in the Conjuring universe, that story. We kind of fell into that. I love where we're at. I don't think I would. I mean, how much money are we talking?
Right, yeah. Let's talk dollars. No, I'll never. I'd like to make a little bit more than what I make, but yeah, I'm not selling out for anybody. You know what's funny about The Haunted, and then we'll move on. I think The Haunted was the first movie that we've ever covered that we were actually, people were like, huh? What? I mean, even like the deep cut, diehard fucking horror fans were like, what are you talking about?
Well, and Marcy that I work with, I said The Haunted to her, and she's like, no idea what the fuck that is. And then I said, watch the trailer. And she watched it, and she said, I have seen that. I remember that. Now I know what you're talking about.
And that, good sir, is the point of what you and I try to accomplish on this show is to, it's almost like our offshoot indie spotlight with Leah Stalker from Pure Macabre. It is to bring attention to things that people might not have seen that we think would be worth other people seeing, things that they forgot about. And just for us to enjoy what we enjoy. Because again, I mean, shit, we might cover Killer Clowns from Outer Space tomorrow. I don't fucking know.
Well, not tomorrow, but next time we record.
That's funny you say that because I told my oldest, I said, I got to record at 7. And she goes, you just recorded the other day. I was like, well, that's for any spotlight. This is for the feature show that we were supposed to do Sunday, but I had to reschedule. And she's like,
Can't even keep up. What you got going on? Anything?
I don't know. My daughter was trying to figure out what the fuck's going on.
So when this episode drops, I will be on my way back from Nebraska. We're going to South Dakota for a couple days, and we're going to Nebraska for a couple days. And after that, we'll be into July. So most people get a 3-day weekend for 4th of July. Other than 4th of July, I don't really know that I have anything going on until that next week. I have Snake Alley Festival film in the second weekend in July. But other than that, probably just getting home and getting caught up on shit that I didn't get to do because I'll be out of town for 7 days. And as much as I love spending time with my family and going on vacation, you know how that goes.
You need a vacation from your vacation for sure.
Yeah, other than that, I'm hoping everything goes well with your events you got going on up there, but coming home and taking a nap so I can go back to work.
Naps sound good. So when this episode comes out, it is a day after Maximum Overdrive. So I'll want to be sleeping, but I won't be sleeping. We're shifting gears to a few things. One is we're going to finish up some things that we were not able to finish for the end. The goal was to have the indoor haunt, all the changes complete for the June event, and that did not happen. We got about 75, pushing 80% done on what we wanted to. We bit off a lot more because as we're doing it, like, let's do this. Well, let's do that. Let's do this. And so we kept adding to it. Maximum Overdrive's over with. We're going to focus on getting the changes to the indoor haunt finalized. Of course, Butch Patrick is going to be at Haunting in the Hills Thursday, July 10th. Yeah, I had to think about that. I almost said the 6th. Thursday, July 10th for a fun evening. A bunch of stuff that we're still wrapping up, and finalizing the details for that event. And we're going to start working now on the hayride and the train car and some other outdoor stuff that we got going on so we can continue to beef that up from last season. What else was there? Something else. Oh, yeah. July 3rd. I've talked about it before, but Boots and I are going to see Weird Al at Pine Knob. I can't wait for that. That's going to be exciting. And that is pretty much it for me. By the time this episode comes out, I should have a solid date to announce for the Vincent Price double feature that I want to do in August. And, we'll be talking some more about the Carnival stuff coming up in September. That's still a little ways down the road. One thing I do want to touch on real quick that is something that just happened, that I just found out about hours before this recording. Brian, you had a comment or a reaction to my post, and that is the owner-operator of Erebus Haunted Attraction, Ed Terabas, passed away suddenly. Don't know Ed's age. I don't think he was much older than me. I'm 47. He might have been 10 years older than me, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't that much older than me. So I'm not going to pretend to be Ed's best friend. Talked to him several times over the years, but he also ran the Fear Finder newspaper, which is instrumental for a lot of people in the Michigan area anyway, even getting into haunts and the spooky community. I know he had kind of stepped back from Erebus. He was still involved, but I think he had like a new creative team that were taking things over for him. But I just wanted to mention that because, like I said in my post, what he contributed to the Michigan haunt scene and to the haunt industry in general will not be forgotten. And just wanted to toss out on this podcast as well that from this podcast and from Haunting in the Hills, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends and the cast and crew of Erebus Haunted Attraction.
Yeah, well, anytime we lose somebody in our community, it always hits a lot closer to home than, it's kind of like wrestling. Anytime a wrestler passes as another wrestler, as a haunter, as somebody in this community, it just kind of makes you sit back and think, God, I hope I get more time on this planet with my family, but I hope when I leave, people will have kind things to say about me and the things I've done.
He was one of those guys in Erebus. I'll be completely honest. I have a completely different style of haunting. I didn't hate Erebus, the haunt. Now I'm not talking about the man. Now I'm talking about the haunt. Ed was a great guy. I didn't necessarily line up with his style of haunting, but I am not going to deny by any means that what he built was a fucking juggernaut. I mean, he was I think he still is, I'm not for sure, in the Guinness World Book of Records for the largest indoor haunt. And he shed a huge light on the haunt community and the haunt industry. So yeah, when we all go, I think we want to be remembered. It's kind of like you and I were talking about just a few minutes ago, Brian, about what we do with this podcast. I hope when it's our time that, at least there's a handful of people that are like, man, I love listening to that show. And because of them, I remembered that I watched The Haunting and I loved it, or I'd never heard of Midnight. I saw it and I'm so glad I did. Now there's this whole genre of film that I enjoy seeing.
Yeah, and when you're that big of in a community, you may say, oh, he just ran a haunted house. No, he touched movies and film and special effects, and there was other stuff that happened because he was doing what he was doing.
He, not indirectly, so in his haunt, he left a funny memory for me. It had nothing to do with him, but it was his haunt. And he had a ball pit, and it was buried alive. And to the best of my knowledge, it was the first time this had ever been done. Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. And it was kind of silly, but it was fun. You got into a room of the haunt at Erebus, and a bunch of like McDonald's play balls, the play pit, would just fill up the room. And so I went, it was me and my buddy Derek, who's super tall. And then there were two young women with us who were taller than me. I was the shortest one in the room. And so the balls got done. And Derek, he says, ooh, this is real scary. He said, none of us are buried alive except for Clint. And all you hear is me enter the ball. Like,
help me out.
Yeah, it was just funny. So many cool memories. So rest in peace, Ed Terabas. I hope that Erebus can continue to go on and be successful.
What do you think this is all about? You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.